Hi everyone, we are from Group Taxit and we will present about business income in this presentation. What is business? According to Section 2 of Income Tax Act 1967, business involves 5 criteria. First, profession, which is the use of intellectual and manual skill. Second, vocation, the way in which a person passes his life. Third, trade, which is a series of repetitive buying and selling transactions with the intention to make profits. Fourth, manufacture, which is the process of transforming raw material to finished goods. Lastly, a venture or concern in the nature of trade where any transaction that gives rise to income is considered as business, even an isolated transaction. So, there are 3 types of business, which are sole trader, partnership, and company. In this presentation, we will focus on sole trader. Basis of trade or the business is assisted when the subject matter of the transaction is treated as trading stock. Length of ownership, where short period is considered as part of the trade. Formation of a company for profit-making purpose. Transaction is repetitive. Alteration of property to make profit, such as manufacture. Business transaction is profit-making motive. Property disposal method is by advertising. Short-term financing arrangement, and their accounting records. Business income is deemed derived from Malaysia when the gross income derived from a business carried on in Malaysia. In other words, it is any gross income that is not attributable to the operation of the business carried on outside Malaysia. So, how to know whether the business is carried on in Malaysia? Business operation is carried on in Malaysia when at least one of the above criteria is fulfilled in Malaysia, which are contract concluded, sales proceeds received, stock maintained, ownership, and risk of trading stock passed or services rendered in Malaysia. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation to Jet.
Thanks, Hui Hong. Hello, I'm Xhi Jet. Now I will continue with permanent establishment. Section 12, subsection 3 mentioned that income from a place of business that allocate in Malaysia shall be deemed to be gross income derived in Malaysia. So yeah, these are the place of business that's stated in subsection 4. Next, when we prepare for the calculation of business income, we can actually have 2 choices, either starting with gross income or net income. Format A is similar to how we did for the calculation for income statement. The differences is that we won't include the non-allowable expense. Well, format B is by adding back the non-allowable expense and deduct the non-business income. After we get the adjusted income, both of the methods require us to add back the balancing charges and deduct the capital allowance, unabsorbed capital allowance, and balancing allowance in order to get the statutory income. Next is about the basic period for a business. For individual business, the basic period is based on calendar year. Well, for company, unit trust, or club, the basic period can be either based on calendar year or financial year. Okay, now I will talk about the commencement of business. The important things that need to be taken note is that pre-commencement expense is not deductible and will be considered as permanent loss, and capital allowance shall be given on commencement. Now, you may also ask, how if capital allowance is related to 2 different business income? The answer is that once recorded the capital allowance in business A, then it cannot be set off against income in business B. And lastly, I will explain a little bit about the cessation of business. Basically, cessation can be divided into temporary or permanent cessation. For temporary cessation, revenue expense is deductible to adjusting income, while unabsorbed capital allowance will be carried forward to the upcoming year. Besides, if there is any current year loss, it will be offset against aggregate income. On the other hand, if it is a permanent cessation, the revenue expenses and unabsorbed capital allowance will be treated as permanent loss. The distribution of asset is recorded under capital receipt. So that's all from me, and now I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, this is Mr. Arif. He owns a business and he is going to pay tax for the first time. So let's help Mr. Arif to identify what business expense that he should know. Before that, why is business expense important for Mr. Arif? Easy, because it will help him to save money over taxes. So without further ado, let's start.
Okay, first of all, Mr. Arif has to make sure that his business expense fulfill all of these conditions. First, each business source has to be accounted separately. Second, the scope of expense refers to outgoing and expense. Third, the expense have to be wholly and exclusively, and it of course must be incurred. And lastly, it must be in the production of the business. Now, let's move on to the business expense. The first one is stated in section 33, which is general deduction. So basically, in section 33, subsection 1A is interest expense for money borrowed. Section 33, subsection 1B is rental expense, which only incurred in producing gross income for the business. And section 33, subsection 1C is repair and renewals. The repair and renewals must not be on the acquisition of the asset or replacement of entire asset. After general deduction, Mr. Arif should know about specific deduction. Firstly, let's get to know about section 34 subsection 2. This section is about bad debt and doubtful debt. It can be divided into three types. The first one is specific provision for bad debts. Mr. Arif must know how to determine it, which by following this step. First, identify specific debtor. Second, the debts are partly or wholly irrecoverable. And lastly, the debt has been reasonably estimated to be bad. Next is general provision for bad debts that is actually non-allowable. And lastly, bad debts written off. After that, section 34 subsection 4, employer contribution to approved scheme. The deduction for employer's contribution is lower of first, the contribution or 19% of employee's remuneration. Then there is also other specific deduction like legal and professional expense, which is other than business fault or violation of the law. Next, loss or advance to employees. And then key man insurance, which means the insurance of important people that influence the company profitability. Subsequently, section 34 subsection C. As you can see here, there's a lot, such as mining expenditure, replanting expenditure, equipment for disabled person, and etc.
Okay, next is double deduction. Mr. Arif can get double deduction if these expenses incurred. Interest on loans to small business, remuneration of disabled employees, revenue expenditure on R&D, employee training costs on GST, scholarship to university student and approved internship program up to 5,000 ringgit each student per year assessment. Now, we move on to disallowed expenses in Mr. Arif business. First are expenses that not wholly and exclusively and capital expenditure. For example, domestic or private expenses, excessive remuneration paid to family members and directors of the company, capital withdrawn or some employee as capital, payment to any pension, provident saving or to any fund which is not approved scheme, qualifying mining, agriculture, forest, prospecting and farm expenditure. Next, for lease rental in respect of passenger vehicles used in business, vehicles that cost above 150,000 ringgit only allowed deduct maximum to 50,000 ringgit, while vehicle cost below 150,000 ringgit only can deduct maximum 100,000 ringgit. But non-commercial vehicles are restricted to be deducted. Besides, for entertainment that not related to sales incurred on clients by company or employee will deductible only 50% of it. However, entertainment that related to annual dinner or event only involved by employee entertainment business like hotel and restaurant, expenses related to product promotion activity, related on entertainment for cultural event to promote the business or relates directly wholly to sales will deductible 100%. Lastly, for leave passage that provided to employee disallowed to deduct. However, cost of meal and accommodation during vacation and cost for yearly event within Malaysia will be deductible.